You're listening to the Comic Crusaders Podcast. I am your host, Al Mega, CEO of Comic Crusaders and Undercover Capes. In this show, I'm sitting down with creators from all walks of life to talk about inspiration, process, the lessons they've learned, and a whole lot more. Wepa, mi familia, what up? This is your boy Al Mega. Today we got an awesome show for you because we have an amazing comic book creator, all right? He is the artist and co-creator of Deadly Class. He's also the writer and co-creator of Gravediggers Union. And he got this dope book dropping this fall via Image Comics called Kaya. Wepa, let me bring up the one, the only legend himself. Yes, he will be in the legend. If there's a comic book Hall of Fame, this man will be in it. Let me introduce the one, the only Mr. Wes Craig. Epa, what up, kiddo? How you doing?
I'm good, man. I got my ego's all blown up, so I'm ready.
Yeah, bro. I see the swelling going on. All good.
Yeah.
What's popping, brother? How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm just I'm up in Montreal, like we were talking before. It's really hot here, but better than the freezing cold weather that we have coming in a few months. So I'm enjoying it while it lasts.
Man, you know what? I am begging for the cold because don't let my dark skin fool you. I love the cold weather.
Yeah, I'll be happy when it's a bit more like early fall is like my thing, like just be able to not have to be forced. You have a few options to wear, not just like the bare minimum, just because it's so damn hot out.
I hear you. It's still illegal to walk naked in New York, so yeah, I understand you.
Yeah, for now, we'll see.
For now, yeah, things will change because are you trying to body shame me, New York?
Yeah, exactly.
Brother, thanks for hanging out with me today to talk about the greatness of this awesome new project you got out. I read the first issue, dope, and then I found the prologue after the fact. I was like, oh man, then I read that. I was like, ooh, everything came together for me. So I was like, fire! I can't wait for people to have this wonderful product in their hands come fall. But before we do all that, I need that origin story, Craig, because it's your first time on CCP, kiddo.
Mm-hmm.
Let us know where you from originally, and it's and your first taste of fandom as a kid.
Yeah, well, born and raised in Montreal. I still live here, and first taste of fandom when I was a kid. My brother's like just a little bit, just like a year older than me, and he was into comic books. We used to there's French and English here in Montreal, so some of the first comic books we ever got were French translations of Marvel comics that were printed in black and white. It was it was a whole different thing. We wouldn't really read them. We would just check out the pictures, old John Byrne on the Avenger, George Perez, John Byrne, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And but the first time I went into a comic book shop, saw the comic that was for me, and started digging in the back trying to look for previous issues was Teen Titans. Marv Wolfman and George Perez was my jam when I was a kid, and I was obsessed with Robotech on TV. The anime Robotech was my favorite thing, and in comic books it originally started with Teen Titans. I loved it.
He said Robotech. I used to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning as a young teenager.
Me too.
TV.
Me too. Same thing. I used to get my mom to tape it for me. Actually, on the old VHS, it was two episodes back to back, and it was 6 a.m, and it was too early for me.
You know what? I love that you said that. For you kids that don't know what a VHS tape is, all right, here it goes. There goes a VHS tape, and look, this one has the tape on it, so you can record over it.
Nice, yeah. And if somebody recorded over my 2 episodes, I'd be pissed.
He'd be livid. Wes Craig would turn into the Incredible Bulk, and it'll be a wrap.
Yeah.
Awesome. So growing up out there, other than your brother, did you have a tribe that was like-minded and what you enjoyed? Did you have a clique, or were you a lone wolf?
It was just me and my brother with comic books. Even in high school, all that stuff. It was really, my brother had a group that was kind of into it. They were into fantasy novels, and they were the whole deal, fantasy novels, heavy metal, comic books, all this nerdy things, Dungeons and Dragons and all that. I didn't really have that, but my clique growing up was a lot of people that were in bands and music, and I just kind of went by myself and just had the comic book thing by myself. And me and my brother would kind of shoot back and forth different issues. Check this guy out, check that guy out,
You let him touch your books? I wouldn't.
Man, he hates when I touch. I have my mutant powers. I have acidic fingers, man. I destroy comic book covers. So he hates when I read his comics. I have to hold them so gently with the plastic on the back or whatever, So, but he's going to be doing a comic book next year, actually. So,
really?
Yeah, he started drawing when I was a kid, and I kind of you know, being the little brother, I drew to copy him. But then there was a certain period where he kind of stopped, and I was just obsessed with it, drawing. So I kind of got to a professional level a little bit before, and got in the business before. But he's been
Ooh.
working steady for a while now, and he's got a comic that's going to be cool. It's gonna no, it's all secret
Uh,
stuff now, but coming out next year. So
awesome.
that's exciting. Yeah.
Basically, the Craig brothers now are going to be tearing up
Hmm.
the comic book universe. It's a wrap, kiddo. It's a wrap.
We'll see.
Awesome. So, all right. So, when did the creative side of you really develop as a young man?
Yeah, I've been doing it since I was a little kid. Like a lot of kids, they just like drawing, and they do, you know, pinups or whatever interests them, and maybe they find their way into whether it be storyboards or video game animation, you know, like video game CGI stuff, or comic books or whatever. But I was just always into comic books, and since I was a kid, I would do some pinups of whoever, Wolverine or whatever character I was into at the time. But like I would do storyboards. I mean, panel to panel, doing the word
Okay.
balloons, doing the whole deal, letter it, ink it, the whole thing. You know, so I've just kind of always been into like writing and drawing my own comics. And
Oh,
now
damn.
now is the chance to get back to that. It's been little bits and pieces over the years where I get to do the whole thing. Plus my letterer Tom Napolitano, and my colorist Jason Wordy, and me. Yeah.
Look at it. Monster team. So,
Mm.
talk about then. What's the education like when you before stepping into the real world? Did you try to, here you are as a kid doing these things, but did you get any like real education on the creation of comics and whatnot, or is this
Yeah,
something you stepped into blindly?
it was pretty blindly. It was just learning everything I could from any comic book. I remember back in the day there was like Dark Horse Comics, Star Wars, and I
Mm.
didn't really buy the comic books, but at the back I knew there was a thing about how do you get into comic books, and I bought it just to read that one page. You know, like
He
like
said
a
one page.
Wizard magazine that would have like, this is how you get into comic books. I would buy that, or just any little bits of knowledge. And I had a dream when I was a kid of going to the Joe Kubert School, because that was just like comic book schools. I didn't know about the school in New York, and it was a
Yeah,
while before the school that they have. I think it's in Atlanta, like the big comic book kind of schools.
yeah.
So it's, for me, all I knew about was Joe Kubert, but I was like, I can't. For one thing, I was just young and green, didn't know what I was doing. I didn't. My parents weren't going to pay for me to live in a to go move to the States or whatever. So I went. I learned. I was just looking for like, what's the closest thing in Montreal that I can find to like a comic book school. So there was Dawson College had an illustration and design program, and I went into that, and they did not like comic books very much. Some of the teachers did.
Oh,
Some
really?
of them were just like, well, back in the day, everyone's just like, comic
Yeah.
books are not art, blah blah blah. That's how they used to be back then. But
Oh, yeah.
uh, and again, not everybody, but some people. Um,
Listen, it was something
yeah,
that was chastised when we were younger. Now this generation does not understand how lucky they are.
yeah. It's that way with comic books in general, and there's a thing about just being nerdy and stuff that's a bit more. It's Everybody has their rough troubles, but back in the day there was no being proud of being a nerd. You know, it was kind of
No,
like you had to kind of hide it, or have something that wasn't nerdy if you ever wanted to, talk to a girl or anything like that. But
don't
now
you
there's
dare
now there's
wear a
not.
comic book shirt back in
Now,
the day. Talking
yeah,
about the
I
girl.
kind of kept it to myself. I kept just doing this drawing stuff on my own, and it was like, but now it's like, again, like a lot of things are just more accepted, more kind of like whatever you're into, you're into. So it's a lot. It's nicer.
Crazy. So
Yeah.
what was it like what was the first time you actually landed an opportunity in comics? And was it for writing or for art, or was it a mixture of both?
It was for art, just because I was sending samples away to comic book companies, because the art was just the art was the amount of time you spend on the art versus the writing. It took a lot more time for the writing to kind of catch up, like in
Okay.
talent wise, I think, to the art, And I was just talking to somebody about this earlier today, but it was like, there's certain, like, I know the writer that I work with on Deadly Class, Rick Remender, he used to draw. Ed Brubaker used to draw a lot. Grant Morrison, there's a lot of writers that used to draw and write, but the writing took off for them, so they became writers. Same thing for me, but on the art side. And always wanted to be a writer, but the art was just more formed at that
Yeah.
time. So I would be sending away samples in when I was at Illustration Design. This is college in Montreal, and I'd be sending stuff away to DC and Marvel and Dark Horse and everybody at the time, every publisher at the time. And I was lucky when I came out of illustration design. A few years out of college, I had a few, terrible jobs, like anybody, just like jobs that just paid the bills while I was trying to get into comic books or trying to get something going that I really wanted to do. And I just sent them away. And then I would get little pieces back that kept me going. Like an editor might send me a personalized letter back through the mail back in the day, not even email.
Oh my God. They had to actually lick a stamp in.
Yeah, which is even more effort. So it's like they made this effort of handwriting this thing, sending it back to me and saying, you're on the right track. You're not there yet, but you're on the right track. So that, that would keep me going.
They would encourage you. That's great.
Yeah, it was great. Man, Joey Cavalieri at DC Comics. I'll name, like, I'm trying to think of like who else. This guy, Dan Raspler at DC Comics. Those guys were both like supportive of me. These editors, they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
But a long time ago, but, and then eventually I got a shot, my first shot. Most people have to climb their way up through the, the Bush Leagues or whatever. And I was really lucky. I got a shot with DC Comics on a title called Touch. That was kind of a mix of, like, they're trying to do a bit of a mix of superheroes with Vertigo, trying to bridge that gap between adult and like kids superhero comics. And it didn't last for very long. There was a line of 4 comics. They did not last very long, but it got me in, Matt Idelson and Nachi Castro. Those were the editors that got
How'd you feel? How'd you feel about that first opportunity as a young man? I'm pretty sure you were like, what the hell is DC?
Pretty good. I could not believe it, man. I could not believe it. I got the email and I was, oh my God. I was living with my brother downtown. We had moved out from my parents' place. Had been living downtown for a while. And he was sitting there watching the TV. I was at my old ass computer. And I got this email and I go, man, they called me. They offered me a job, and I had to walk around the block. I did like a long walk around the block, and it was like, Breakfast Club. I was doing the like fist pump in the air to myself. Like I was so happy. I was like, I did it. So I was psyched, man. And then it was,
did anyone try to give you change? Because they must have said, look at this crazy guy. Here's a quarter, bro.
Yeah, this guy's talking to himself. You did it, man. You did it all by myself. Yeah. But didn't mean it was easy sailing from there, because it was like, we got that, then that got canceled. Then I had, it's something I've heard before about I'm sure it's the same with a lot of different businesses, the industries. It's not just a matter of getting in the front door. It's like staying in once you get in. It's like I got in, but then that didn't succeed. So then I'm on the outs, and then I had to find other jobs. And I'm like, and Nachi Castro, super nice guy. He hooked me up with other DC jobs, but they were kind of like bits and pieces here and there just to kind of keep paying the rent, Yep. So it took a while to kind of get in there. Yeah, exactly. And then eventually there was a bit more of a role, bit more stuff. And then I got Guardians of the Galaxy for a while from Marvel, and then a few other little things. But then once Deadly Class happened, then it was like, that's my
How did that happen? How did that happen? How did you meet Mr. Remender and get hooked up with Image? Because you guys smashed the shit out of that. Love the show. love the show. Love the comics. I was like, yo, this is dope. And this is a diverse comic. And your art was monstrous in that.
Oh, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It was kind of, not to flatter Rick's ego too much, but like getting that email from Rick, it was a similar thing. It was the next one. He emailed you. Yeah, he emailed me, and I was the same thing when I saw DC Comics in the email. I was going, what are they doing emailing me? And the same thing, I saw Rick Remender's name, and I was like, what's going on? I was already a fan of his work. I was a fan of Strange Girl was the first thing I saw of his, and I was a fan of the Fear Agent, then the Marvel stuff he was doing at the time, X-Force. And he did a bunch of stuff, like Brother Voodoo was like how he turned him into Doctor Strange. There was a lot of cool stuff he was doing. And he just called me up. I was already a fan. I had actually contacted him on Facebook, like, I don't even know how long ago, like 2 years before that, just saying, this is going to sound like I'm kissing my own ass or whatever, but it was like, I liked the artist that he worked with. I just liked his taste in artists. I liked it, So I was like, how do you line up these artists? I wrote him a message on Facebook, and even though he was this mega popular guy, he wrote me back, and he's just said you got to kind of catch them at the beginning of their careers when you can see the talent, you can tell they're really good, but they haven't been poached by whatever company or whatever, and just get in contact with them and try to find a way to pay them and blah, 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 just gave me a few pointers. And same thing, I met him at a convention one time across from me. He was hawking all his wares, and I was hawking all of mine. And I just said, hey man, I love your stuff, and I forgot that I sent him that Facebook message. He forgot that I had met him at a convention. And then afterwards it was we met and we talked over the phone. He said, I got this idea for a comic book. I was working with Lee. This is a bit long-winded, but I was working with Lee Lowrich. He was coloring me on a small little Batman thing. and Rick was looking for somebody that would suit this Deadly Class idea that he had. And he was hanging out with Lee. Him and Lee are friends. He was hanging out at Lee's place, and Lee was coloring my stuff, and he was going, "Who's this?" As far as I remember, that's what I think what he told me. And so he contacted me, and then we got on the phone, and it was like just like he had his punk rock history, I had mine, and we're basically the same age. He grew up in like Arizona and then California. I'm up in Montreal, so very different places, but a lot of the same kind of, touchstones that we both had growing up, all the same music, all the same stuff, he's more of a skater. I was like a rockabilly kid. So we were both kind of, the punk thing was like united by that,
the uniting factor.
Yeah. And when he described me Deadly Class, I was like, yeah, like high school in the late 80s, early 90s, punk rock. It's like, he knew that he didn't have to explain to me what he was talking about. It was like, I get it exactly. So we knew we were in sync from there,
Oh, that is so fire! So, and then obviously, that's for me a legendary image title. So fire that spawned off an amazing TV show. Short-lived. How dare they? How dare they?
I know, man. I just came back. I went to C2E2 a few weeks ago, and then I just got back from Toronto. They had a fan expo, and it's a lot of people being like, one season, and I was like, I know, man, I know. It would have been nice if we got 2 seasons, but it's beyond our control. It's out of our hands, But it was a good first season. It looks nice, great actors, great music, which Rick was heavily involved in making it close to his vision. So I'm proud of that. It turned out the way it did. I'd rather that than 10 seasons of some garbage version of our comic,
Fuck yes. 100, brother. 100, bro. I'll say that for you. Hell yes.
Yeah.
So before we get into your current projects, give us a little bit about Gravediggers too, because I also see you're a co-creator on that bad boy. Give us a little synopsis on how that happened.
Yeah, it started off as an idea. I do these. I've done 2 of these little collections called Black Hand Comics, and it's like Twilight Zone influenced, EC Comics influenced, like that kind of world, like little short stories, just little snippets. Kind of sometimes not even super story, more like just an idea. But it was my way of just experimenting, like even more than I do on Deadly Classic, just like going wild with all my different ways to present a story in comic books and stuff like that. And one of the stories was Gravediggers Union. And it was I just thought it was a cool little idea about this cool little horror thing where these guys, the thing is they bury the dead during the day, and at night they make sure they stay buried. So they're just like a supernatural kind of chopping off, stabbing zombies and stabbing vampires in the heart, chopping off zombie heads, whatever they got to do to keep the living okay, like, sleeping comfortably in their beds.
They paid a living wage because it is a union job.
It is a union. Yeah, exactly. That's the whole thing. My dad's a union guy. So I had some questions, unlike comic books, my dad was a union guy. So I had questions for him about how that works and what's the hierarchy and how do they deal with the company, et cetera, all that stuff. So he informed me about all that.
So Elder Craig is also a co-creator, if you will, then kind of.
Yeah, he helped. I didn't give him a writing credit, but he helped. He was research,
that's awesome.
But yeah, I did that, and then I had just a bigger idea for it. I said, you know what, I think this has like legs to form into something bigger. And I was doing Deadly Class, so I didn't have time to draw it. So I said, I had 3 different artists in my mind that I had researched. That I was like, one of these guys, they're all killer. If any of these 3 guys say yes, I'll do it. And if I can't get any of these 3 guys, I don't think I'm gonna do it, because it's like it's gotta look how I want it to look. I'm not just gonna go to like my secondary, my third, my whatever, like the second tier of people that I thought would suit.
Stand your ground on what you want, kiddo. Hell yeah.
Yeah, and I got Toby Cypress to agree to do it, and he's awesome, and he had just something about him where there's certain aspects that remind me of like EC Comics, which is kind of the big influence of the series, and a really new crazy version of it. But there's just certain elements that remind me of like B. Kriegstein and like blanking on Harvey Kurtzman and stuff like that, like some of the old school EC guys. So but like a really crazy new take on it, like more experimental and little aspects of modern, Paul Pope and all kinds of other stuff that he throws in there. So yeah, he drew it, and Nico Guardi was the colorist. Jared Fletcher was the letterer. So it was kind of like I got everybody that I hoped would be on it, and I'm proud of it, man. It's like 2 trade paperbacks worth of just
Woo.
fun, just crazy stuff, just like whatever, just crazy horror stuff that
What comics should be.
kind of funny. Like I thought it was, to me, it was kind of funny. Like there's certain aspects, like there's like steroid zombies and just like wild, whatever crazy stuff I could come up with,
So basically, it was a WWE WWF back in the day as zombies. Okay, so steroided zombies. That's all like this. I can't imagine that.
Yeah, roided zombies, like junk monsters, like as in like like golems, kind of like created out of junk, and just crazy enemies for them to face off against.
Man, I would hate to be in your head when you're dreaming. Hold on.
Yeah, it's a problem.
So I want to get into your awesome new book that's going to be dropping this fall. So before we even do that, folks, guess what? We got a trailer. So check this out, so that way you get a taste of it, and I got even more after that. Man, I love that track. That sounds like some old spaghetti western stuff going on in this mother.
Yeah, that's the idea. A little bit of like Conan, spaghetti western, a few of those kind of influences. My brother-in-law made that beat, and then that spaghetti western bit at the end was made by the guy who works Drew, who works for Image Comics. He put the trailer together, so it's cool. Amazing. It makes my foot, it makes my foot makes me tap my foot. So I like that.
The indigenous side of me wanted to start like jumping up and down with them drums, kid. Holy
that's a huge thing. Exactly. That's kind of the influence of where Kaya's tribe is a little bit like kind of Native American influence to a certain degree. We live close to a reservation just outside of Montreal, and the name where Kaya comes from is the place she comes from is called Kahaka, and that's kind of influenced by the original name of Montreal and that reservation that's there now.
Oh, that's fire. That's fire. And, I'm going to bring this up, and, because this is awesome prologue that people could read for free. So I'm not spoiling anything. All right. But, look at this. So talk to us about the world here. What was the inception of the idea, and then get into the world?
Yeah, it's the inception of the idea is something I had a long time ago. I had the idea for the world, kind of just a smash up all my influences and smash up kind of ancient. It's the Earth set so far in the future that it more resembles the ancient past. Like it's like as in kind of, it looks more like, ancient Egypt and Babylon and stuff like that. But underneath it all is like our society buried for thousands of years, that kind of a thing. So when people uncover things that are tech or science, it's like they don't understand it anymore. So to them, it appears like magic. That kind of an idea.
It's like they find an iPod and that plays music. What is this music?
Yeah, what is this? It's the God speaking to us or something like that. That's what they would think it is, right? So, and there's robots, but it's like they don't think of them as robots. And there's aliens, but there's also ancient, temples with dark gods and all that. So it's a mix of sci-fi and fantasy. And I had that idea for this world, but I didn't have really a character or two characters or whatever that brought it to life, that dramatized it, and then eventually I was working on these different ideas, and Kaya kind of came into my head. She was like just a badass, like adult, and then like an adult hunter. And then from there, slowly I was like, oh, what if she's like younger? And then she's kind of more, she's still a badass, but she's got to be a bit more, she's only 14, so there's only so much of a tough guy when you can be when you're that young. So, but she's been trained, she knows her stuff, but she is still a kid. So she's not sure if she's ready for this mission that she has to go on. So that draws some, there's some doubt in the reader's mind, hopefully, over whether they can make it or not. And she's got to protect her little half brother, who is a prince, and he's spoiled and he doesn't know how to defend himself or survive in the wild at all. So there's a mission they have to go on. They have to reach Monk Island. This is some safe harbor far, far, far away from where they live, and they have to go through this dangerous world to reach it. It was supposed to be her uncle's job to take him when he was ready, when he was old enough. But the robot empire came and burned their village down to kind of stop this whole thing from happening. And Kaya escaped with her little brother Jin. And so now it's her duty to get him to the safe harbor, even though she's just kind of like a few years older than her little brother is. So that's
I'm digging this. Setup. You're telling me that robots believe in impossible, in prophecies, if you will.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the whole thing, man. It's like
I dig that.
It's kind of like they will not, when you're that powerful of an empire, it's a little bit like the robots are a bit like the ancient Romans, where it's like they will not tolerate any, they don't have control of the whole world, but they're so powerful that if they hear any dissension, they shut it down immediately. So whether they believe it or not, other people believe it, and other people can kind of group around this kid Jin and eventually build him up. And if they have this symbol of this kind of rebellion, then it's trouble for the robot empire. So they want to shut it down before it becomes a thing. But the problem is that Kaya escaped with Jin. So now it's kind of a bigger problem for them. And so they're on the hunt, and there's other things around them. There's a lot of things they have to get through, including a giant unstoppable robot empire to get to where they're going. And that's the overarching story of the series.
Excellent. And this prologue kind of explains prior to issue 1, because I love this page that you did here. I mean, look at this, look at that panel work, son. Whoa,
that's my thing, man. Just kind of break it up and stuff. Yeah, breaking up.
I mean, just looking at this like that is fire. So much stuff going on. Look at this, very old school feel to it, and those panel breakdowns and the verbiage. Dope, man. This character himself, the prince.
Yeah, that's Jin.
What a little egotistical. I'm like, yo, and then I love that, because as I read issue 1, there were things there that I was like, okay, wait, so how are they, fam? And this prologue will help you explain that. So, explain your tactic here by sharing this prologue before that issue 1 drops in October.
Yeah, I mean, like, some people know me from Deadly Class, and some people will just see my art or maybe see these characters and be interested in it. But I mean, you can't take anything for granted that when it comes out, they're going to pick it up right away. So I just I made a 16-page comic book, all done, ready to go. I put out online. I sent it to people that wanted it through email, just sending them a PDF of it. Okay. And then eventually I said, I want it to be free for everybody to read that has a computer or phone or whatever. So I put it up. I figured Webtoon was, I was going to make my own website, but then I was like, man, that's a lot of work to make. I don't have one currently. So I was like, okay, Webtoon's there. It's already got an audience. They're more, they're not necessarily into this kind of thing, but it was a way for me to get this thing available to everybody to read. And yeah, if they like this preview, then the comic is coming out October 5th. So, you can get the first issue. First issue is completely separate. This, but not everybody out there maybe knows. Like the preview that I put out is a separate story. The first issue, it really starts the real to be continued kind of drama of the overall arc. This first preview is more just kind of like a finished story that just shows you who Jin is, who Kaya is, how they got here, a little snippet, and a little bit of drama, and the relationship between each other, and that's it. Just enough to kind of wet your palate.
You get to see how Jin is the little dick, if you will.
Yeah, man. Well, like, they're gonna learn from each other. He's got a lot to learn. He's been given everything in life. He's a prince. He's got this thing where he's supposed to, he's got a prophecy about him that he's gonna one day bring down the robot empire. That's why the robot empire wanted him squashed. But it's like he's been given everything because he's the prince of this little village, and Kaya is his half sister. And she's raised in completely different circumstances. She's raised by her uncle, who raises her as a hunter. She's just like a tomboy, just a tough little girl. She has a magic or tech, whatever you want to say it, like a magic kind of robot, a magic arm, which helps her in the things she has to do, smashing whatever she needs to smash to get her to to make it through. But yeah, he's going to learn a lot from her over time, and she's going to learn some things from him too. And that's the more the emotional kind of line of the story, you know.
Because he's kind of the narrator of the story too, which is what I felt in that issue one, which is really cool to see his perspective on him speaking about his past and how things will change eventually.
Yeah,
I like
that's
that
something
take.
that I thought was interesting. Back when I was a kid, I saw what's the movie? I'm just drawing a blank. Stand by Me, I think it's called, where it's like River Phoenix and like
Oh
all
yeah,
like Corey Feldman and all these kids, and they're trying to go in to find a body. It's a Stephen King story, so they're going to find a
yeah.
body, and like it's narrated by one of the kids it's narrated by Will Wheaton, I think, when he's grown up, and he's an author when he's grown up. So he's like looking back on these silly kids and the crazy stuff they used to get up to, and that's an influence. There's a few influences that led me to that. And the first one was the Arnold Schwarzenegger Conan movie that starts off with this narrator, and he's like the high adventures and stuff like that. He talks about who Conan is, and I kind of picture Jin's voice being a bit like that, like this raspy old man. I'm not sure what age he is exactly, or I'm keeping it close to the vest, I should say, how old he is when he's writing this. But
Yeah.
he's writing this from quite a few years in the future, and whether they got to where they were going or whether they're still on the road or whatever, I won't say any of that until way later. But like for now, it's just like an older version of Jin looking back on how foolish he was when he was younger, and maybe how foolish Kaya may have been too, just, you know, like analyzing what he went through as a kid, which I thought was a good kind of way of showing different perspectives on the same story.
What was his influence? Look at this robot, badass looking robot right there.
Yeah, talking about Robotech. That's a nod.
Yeah,
That's
right?
a nod to the third war in Robotech is like the Invid. Those are like the bad guys, and that's kind of a nod to the Invid. I always thought they were just the coolest looking crab monsters ever. So that's where I kind of got that from.
And check out the magic in quotes arm right there. Fire! Look at that. I mean,
that's
where
a big
that inspiration
influence.
come from, bro?
There's two things. It kind of, as you can, I don't know if I made it clear enough, but it kind of grows and morphs a little bit as her emotions or as she's needed. If she's getting into some kind of big fight, it kind of powers up and like it gets more spiky and bigger. And as it goes down, as you see in that panel there, her emotions have calmed down, so it kind of gets smaller, more like a normal arm. And then if she's in a fight or something else, it gets kind of crazy and metal and just more heavy metal as it's needed. And I think that, I don't know, I just always thought that was just super cool. But I guess the Right Hand of Doom from Hellboy is an influence on that, just this big giant thing. And there's a few different things, but I just thought it'd be cool I just thought it looked cool to begin with. And then I said, okay, well, then I realized, oh, what if she doesn't actually have an arm underneath her? And that's part of her story, is that her arm was amputated when she was really young. And the reason she got this arm is a whole I kind of explain it a bit in what you're going through right here.
Yeah.
But not fully. Like, I think eventually I'll kind of show that story a bit more.
Yeah, I need to know this story.
Okay, I got a plan for after the first arc. I might do a little flashback where I kind of delve into it a little bit more. So it's a cool story. So I think I'll do that. Yeah.
And I love this transition here. You know, we got all this color, and then here's a little story goes into this black and white, feeling like those old school Savage Sword of Conans.
Yeah, totally, for sure. That's good, because that's kind of what I'm going for. And also that's like I said, Jason Wordie is the colorist, but then for that flashback stuff, that's what it looks like on my side of things, because I do pen and ink, but then or ink and brush, but I also do like a watercolor kind of gray tone thing that he works with. So that's kind of what it looks like. This gray tone is all watercolor stuff. And it gives it that fantasy feel, like I like that kind of fantasy feel where it looks a little bit more painted, a little bit more Frank Frazetta, not to compare it at all, but like that,
I guess
that fantasy world, that always strikes me as, if you're going to do that, it's like maybe kind of have a painted influence in some way. And that's,
looks amazing. So what was it like when you approached the team to go ahead and start building this wonderful project?
Yeah, well, it was the same thing a little bit. Like, I had certain people in mind, but if they say no, I don't know what I'm going to do, because I don't want to just approach anybody. They got to be right for the project. Tom Napolitano, he's from Andworld Design. Like, they hooked me up with him, and he's an amazing letterer. He's kind of bigger than usual, the lettering. It looks really nice. If you shrunk it down, you can still see all the lettering and expressive balloons and stuff. Like, there's like the tails of the balloons kind of are a bit more expressive than the average comic, which I hope shows the character's personality a little bit. And And Jason on the colors, it's just I knew him from working on this comic called First Knife from originally called Protector. When it got collected, they had to change it. Now it's called First Knife from Image Comics. It was just awesome. Just loved his color palettes and stuff, and I thought he'd do a good job on this. And I asked him if he would try out a sample or two, and when he came back with it, I was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing! Like, you have to please, like work with me on this comic." So,
so you didn't have a game face? You were like, "It's okay." You were like, "Yes, I want to."
I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe a little bit of a game face, but now he's working for me, so now I can admit how bad I wanted him to work with me.
Awesome. I mean, it's a wonderful job. You guys make an incredible team. Look at this, yo! My God, just look at that.
Yeah,
in action right there.
Yeah, you got to show her in action. That's when she had to use. That's what I'm talking about. With the magic arm comes in handy, you know.
Yeah,
you got to smash a giant robot. It happens sometimes.
and there goes his snobbiness. For example, you didn't wrap my arm properly. You'll have to do it again. What a like, you know what? You lucky I even wrapped it, kiddo.
Yeah, and the narration is like just him, like any of us looking back on some of the stuff we did as kids, and just shaking wagging our heads like, oh my god, I was such an idiot, you know. But again, he's had everything given to him, so he's not used to this world, you know.
Oh yeah, I can't wait till people read issue 1 and they see how spoiled his ass is and how he talks. So I'm like, oh bro.
I hope people don't hate him because he will change over time. But I wanted them to start off butting heads as much as possible. You know what I mean? Like I want the drama of two people, the odd couple thing. And it's a mix of the odd couple thing. And when I was a kid, I loved like Lone Wolf and Cub. So it's this strong protector and this kid that really needs help. And I love that dynamic, you know? So it's like, and she's not ready, but she's a lot tougher than he is. So she's got to take it on. And I love also like strong older sisters and younger brothers. I've never had that, but you know what that's like when there's that kind of dynamic. Like a 14-year-old girl is not going to like her 8-year-old brother. He's a pain in the ass. You know what I mean? Right. But he might love her, but she doesn't always like him, you know? So that's that's kind of the relationship, you know?
That reminds me a little bit of Black Phone, even though it was reversed. If he was the older brother, she's the little sister. I don't know if you've seen the phone, but there's a point in the film where he's getting beat up by bullies and she don't give a crap. That's her brother. And she jumps in like a boy and starts swinging. I'm like, yo, I wish I had a sister like that. She probably has more nuts than my brothers do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They got to do what they got to do.
And look at this beautiful panel. Holy smokes, bro. Where were you in your mind when this was even drawn? So look at it.
Yeah, that was a good one, man. When it came back with and putting it turned out the way that I wanted it to turn out. And I wanted to show this wider world. They're walking, kind of the end of the first Terminator movie where it's like they've gone through some troubles, but you see that dark sky in the first Terminator movie that they're driving off into, like the troubles have only begun, that kind of a thing. So it's like they're past this part, but they're still in the desert. This whole world is in front of them. What's going to happen? And there's that vulture at the top of the panel, just to let you know that it's not going to be too long before they have another problem to deal with, you know? And I liked it, but then especially that one in particular, I think that's one of the first things I got Jason to color to see if he could nail it more than Kaya and Jin, like the world. And he came back with that, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's just so." You can feel the heat of the desert, the way that he colors it. I find so. Yeah, that got me really excited.
Yeah, it's amazing. Look at that, folks, right there from Wes Craig and team, October 5th. You could even order from comic shops using that code. All right.
Yeah.
You can even get it online at Comixology if you're into the digis. But I'm a print man, so it's like I need to smell the ink on that mofo.
Yeah, me too, for sure. I just want to give as many options as possible. But if you like reading comics, I sample the occasional thing on Comixology if I've missed it in the comic shop or whatever, you know. So it's like it's useful for that. But yeah, me too. I love getting I just came back from Toronto with a bunch of old comics. They're gonna smell really strange when I take them out of the plastics. But yeah, I love reading them.
My boy gets high. He says he loves 70s ink because the first thing he does is open those books right to the middle and just
Me too. I think there's more people that do that than I realized, because I always thought I was a little bit of a weirdo. I'd get these European like graphic albums and stuff, and I'd just be like, "Oh, it smells so good," and it's the ink in the paper. And I was like, "Does anybody else do this?" And like my wife does it. I was like, "Okay." The first time I heard her say, "Okay, I'm not the weirdest person.
You're not the only sniffer in the world."
Yeah, sniffing books at the bookstore. It's like, geez, man, I don't know. That's a weird one. But apparently some people do it.
Hopefully you're using that top quality ink, give them people the right high right before they start reading.
Yeah, that's I wonder. I'm like, should I be smelling this stuff? It's probably got some chemicals. Who knows, man? I don't know.
Yeah, but it's like the whiteout back in the day when kids used to sniff it at school. You know what I mean?
Yeah, same thing. Maybe
I do
that's
not
part of
encourage that.
it. Yeah.
Awesome. So, what's the plan with the book? Is it a limited? Is it ongoing? What's popping?
It's ongoing. I gotta. You never know how these things are gonna go. I hope a lot of people that like Deadly Class join me here. I hope people that like fantasy join me. Like we'll see. You know, I'm getting the word out there. It seems like the conventions I've gone to, people seem to know what I'm talking about. They're not just like, what is this thing? Like if they like Deadly Class, they seem to know about it. So hopefully I'm getting the word out there. And if it does well, whether it does well or not, I got a certain amount of issues. It's an ongoing series, no matter what.
Beautiful.
How ongoing it is, I mean, that depends on how well it does. I'm not gonna. I gotta still make my rent every month. So it's like maybe I have to wrap it up a bit shorter than I wanted, or if it succeeds, maybe I can do the full story. I'd like to do. It sounds crazy, and I'm gonna regret saying this, but I do picture it being like. I'd like it to be like 9 trade paperbacks worth. Like I'd like to do like three arcs, little tiny break, 3 arcs, little tiny break, 3 arcs, and then wrap it up, something like that. But I mean, that's it's a lofty goal. So I don't want to. I'm gonna look back on this interview like a year later and go, oh, it only lasted like 2 years. You know, like I don't know. Like we'll see what happens. But one way or the other, I'm gonna make it work though. Whether it'll all see the light of day. Whether how long the story is, that's what changes. Yeah. There's a middle part that can either be expanded or shortened depending on how well it does. So that's the wiggle room I'm giving myself.
So you telling us that you kind of already planned that much ahead story wise?
It's rough, but I've got the first 3 arcs like surprisingly figured out, even like dialogue and stuff. Like I've got the first 2 arcs thumbnailed. For those who don't know, it's just like that's like the really small rough version of it that you draw to kind of let yourself know the story flow and stuff. And it's got all the dialogue. It's all figured out. I just got to sit down and draw the actual final inked pages instead, like penciled inked pages, and then get it onto Jason to color, etc. And then the second one is all figured out, not thumbnailed, but it's all kind of broken down like script style, like where I know each panel, what's in each panel. And kind of similar to the third arc is slightly less. And then it kind of goes like that. I have an endpoint I want to get to. I have a basic idea of that middle part and that end part, but that's why I want to take small breaks every 3 arcs or so, just to kind of reevaluate and see where I'm at and see what things are, your writing gets better over time. You don't want to lock yourself into like one specific exact plan. You want to give yourself a little bit of room to move. And if you could tell the story better, by the time I'm there, I'm going to be a better writer than I am now. So I want to give myself some room to kind of expand on ideas and just finesse it a little bit.
Oh, I can't wait because you're kidding stuff. I think people are going to eat this up. It's adventure. It's sci-fi. I think mixed as well. You got some great characters already connected with them. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I'm already like getting mad at Jen, and I never only read the prologue in this. I'm like, but I connected. You made me feel like, check them out. So I think people are gonna eat this bad boy up. Folks, to repeat, you gotta get your copy October 5th. That's Diamond Code right there. So go to your local comic shop, like right now. Ask them to pull out that previews book and tell them that's what you want. AUG 220055. How weird is that? You got double digits across the board on this.
It's true. Maybe, I didn't notice that until you said it, but it's like maybe hopefully that makes it easier to remember, because you got to remember that, or email them, phone them, whatever. Send a smoke signal, whatever you got to do to let them know.
Get it done. So flowers time, kiddo. I want to thank you for your time, but of course, most importantly, I want to thank you for being an amazing creator that has thoroughly entertained me with everything you've done. You are a boss of the game, man. If there's a comic book Hall of Fame, you will be inducted, I am sure. So keep killing it. Keep doing what you're doing, bro. Keep pulling those smiles on my face. Keep me getting mad at people like Jin, and hopefully I should be able to love him. But hopefully after this arc, like, oh man, he's the boss.
Yeah, so, I'm gonna work hard on that. We'll get him there eventually. It might take a little while, but I appreciate it, man. This is great questions. Great talking to you. I appreciate it.
You rock. So last one here, because the way you navigated in the business and doing such wonderful stuff, what type of advice would you give to any youngins trying to step into the game today?
Man, it's a lot different than when I was a kid. Don't let anything stop you. You can really just get it done, get it out there on the internet. You don't need a printer, you don't need a publisher to say yes. You don't need anybody really. You can just do your own thing. If you're just a writer or just an artist or just a whatever, then obviously you got to find some people that are on the same level as you and come together and work together on something. But I'd say don't start. A lot of young people, they want to do their magnum opus. They want to do their giant. I'm going to do my Star Wars or my this or that or my Lord of the Rings, which is maybe I'm making the mistake of doing that now, but I've been working on it for a long time. So this is my big story. But I mean, I haven't building. You build up to it. You do small stories. Do just start with a 10-page thing, move on to a 20-page thing, 30-page, 40. Just kind of grow from there. You're going to learn each time, and each time you move on to the next project, you're going to be better and stronger at what you're doing. So don't start with the short story, because that's how you learn your comic book chops too. Like back in the day, Alan Moore started on these tiny little stories in these British magazines, and EC Comics were all 10 pagers and stuff. Like that's kind of how you learn your chops first, and then you move on from there and just get stronger each time. Yeah, just get it out there, and then if you want to get a job with the comic publishers or whatever, just have it out there, have it out in the world. And these people are looking for new talent all the time. So if you have it out there enough on all the platforms and all the whatever, all the different ways you can get it out there. And then you go to comic conventions, shake some hands, talk to some other artists, make some connections and stuff if you can. That'll help you out, meet these editors and stuff, or whatever. Don't deal with those companies. Just do your thing, do whatever you want to do with it. But yeah, there's nothing really stopping you except for procrastination. Yeah. Not believing you're good enough, and just destroy those things in your mind and just just get the work done. Don't let anything get in your way. Even if you got to work a job like me, for a long time, I had just terrible jobs. I was working part-timers, whatever, this or that, just to give myself, I wasn't making much money, but I gave myself enough time when I came home at the end of the night, I wasn't too burned out. That's really tough though. Sometimes you gotta pay the bills, but each week carve out however much you can get out of it without killing yourself. Just carve out a little bit of time every week to just get a little bit more done. And at the end of the year, it'll add up, like it'll turn into, it's like this thing I saw is Stephen King or someone else, I'm not sure, but you write 1 page a day. It seems like nothing, but at the end of the year, that's a novel's worth of work, so it's like, it does add up over time.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah. Don't let tiredness, that's the rough one, man. You got to find the time you got to find the energy to not be tired, to kind of get at the drawing board or the writing or whatever, and find a way to get it done every week, every month,
There you go. Find your ways, folks. Don't listen to the evil inner voice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't make excuses. Make the time. And you're going to have this rocked out. It's true. I like that concept. It's just, even just a page a day or a month, you still have something, it's all right. So, just keep going, guys. Now, this is what I need you to do. I need you to sign up to Wes's newsletter, right? That's WEPURL.com/C, capital WO1GF. All right, that's the newsletter. You know what? I'll make it easy for you guys. This is in the link right below the video. Just go ahead and click away. You can follow Wes everywhere at Wes Craig Comics. He's the boss. He made sure he took over that handle everywhere. And very importantly, go spend that cheddar at your local comic shop or Comixology October 5th. Now, if you like print, I need you guys, the diamond code is AUG220055. Look at that. It's destined for greatness. It's all even numbers, right? From Image.
It's made to be.
Right? So check it out. Wes Craig is an amazing, amazing creator. So, again, thank you for your time today. You rock, bro. You already made me a fan of this book. I've already been a fan, but now this book, oh, holy shit, bro. It's Conan, it's tech, it's everything we love, all rolled up into a ball right here. An awesome comic with amazing characters, and I really can't wait to add this to my pull list and see how far we go with this story. Hopefully, I'll get all those 9 volumes. Like it's the plan. Manifest. 9 volumes. 9 volumes. You hear me?
See. Thank you, man.
All right, man. Wes, you rock, brother. Thank you so much. And everybody, you know what to do. Check us out at comiccrusaders.com for all the latest comic book news, reviews, previews of stuff like over here, like Kaya. All right. And of course, check out my extended family over at undercovercapes.com for all types of podcasts. We cover K-pop, old school comics, new school comics, Marvel, DC, movies. You name it, we cover it. All right. So with that, hasta la próxima, mi gente. Much love. Thank you again, Wes. Hasta la próxima. Wepa! Bye.
Thanks, man. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Crusaders Podcast. If you like the content, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, please visit comiccrusaders.shop and our extended podcast family over at undercover.com. And also, make sure to download the Comic Crusaders app in the Google Play Store today.